I've watched that video countless times, and it sure looks like Brittney Griner says, white girl.
Just when you thought the WNBA might finally start appreciating the golden goose that literally saved their league from irrelevance, we get hit with the most infuriating display of hypocrisy and resentment that sports has seen in years. And leading the charge in this absolute circus? None other than Brittney Griner, who apparently thinks the massive crowds flocking to see Caitlyn Clark are somehow a problem that needs solving.
Every time we play her, there's this commotion, like this loud rumbling from the stands. Turns out it's people, thousands of them, just sitting there watching on purpose. It's very disruptive. She says WNBA games used to be a chill, quiet place. You could bring your laptop and relax, maybe even get a little work done. But now it's like there's large gatherings of people watching us from the stands. Some of them are yelling crazy shit about what they're seeing, putting unfair pressure on us to score, like we're there for their entertainment. You are. The whole thing is toxic. I saw a guy with his daughter in the crowd, both of them yelling, couldn't hear what they were saying exactly, but it was either my performance or some...
But here's where it gets beautiful, folks. Stephen A. Smith, the man who's been screaming into the void about Caitlyn Clark's value while everyone else played politics, has officially reached his breaking point. And when Stephen reaches his breaking point, you better believe the entire sports world is about to get a reality check that would make a college professor weep with joy.
To be honest with you folks, the WNBA already set a precedent. It doesn't matter what Brittney Griner said. It doesn't matter what Brittney Griner said, because they've already shown us they don't need evidence, they don't need substance, they don't need any type of proof at all to launch a bogus investigation into Indiana Fever fans, so they shouldn't need any substance, any basis, any evidence to launch an investigation into any other fan, any other player, any other group. The WNBA set.
If you've been paying attention to Stephen's coverage of the WNBA over the past year, you've watched a man slowly build toward what can only be described as a volcanic eruption of common sense. This isn't just about basketball anymore. This is about watching a league systematically sabotage its own success because certain players and executives are too proud to admit that one rookie changed everything.
Brittney Griner was in a Russian prison. You would think that somebody who is now free, back in America on home soil, would not have too much to complain about. Especially something like this. Fans in every sport. She described the fans.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what sport you are. It doesn't matter what sport you pick. That's how fans act in every arena.
This has been building for months, maybe even since the day Caitlyn Clark stepped onto a professional court and immediately became the most important player in league history. While half the WNBA was acting like Clark was some sort of basketball tourist who accidentally wandered into their league, Stephen was out there stating facts that would make a mathematician weep with joy.
We know this. Attendance for the entire league was up nearly 50% last year. According to data from across the timeline, and Indiana led all teams with an average attendance of 17,035. That was up 319% from the year earlier. 319%. 319%. All other teams still grew by double-digit percentages. So let's not forget that. But they didn't grow by 319%. That was Caitlyn Clark, which means she's largely responsible for the overall league attendance records. Merchandise sales were also up 450% for the WNBA, according to Fanatics, and Clark was the top-selling player and is fifth among athletes across all...
We'll find out. We don't know yet, Stephen said when discussing Clark's impact on WNBA ratings, but I'm going to be really interested in seeing what kind of effect this has on the WNBA's ratings, because if, for some reason, there is a precipitous drop-off, then everybody needs to stand down. It's like watching someone ignore a pot of gold while complaining about being broke. And Stephen is the guy standing there yelling, "The gold is right there!"
And this is the magnetic traction that draws viewers to the WNBA, and her absence over the next 2 weeks due to that quad strain
is providing further evidence of that, then everybody needs to accept it, stand down, and ride that wave. I'm going to be really interested in seeing how the ratings are going to look without her over the next 2 weeks. Let's make sure we come back and ask me this exact same question after she's been gone for those 2 weeks.
If you are enjoying, please subscribe. Let's talk numbers for a hot second, because apparently some people in the WNBA front office need a calculator and a reality check. Games featuring Caitlyn Clark this season have averaged 1.178 million viewers. Games without her, a measly 394,000 viewers. That's not just a difference, that's a 199% gap that's so wide you could drive a freight train through it. To put this in perspective that even the most mathematically challenged sports executive could understand, Clark's games draw 3 times more viewers than games without her. 3 times. When Caitlyn Clark entered the WNBA, she became a one-woman economic stimulus package. The season opener between Clark's Indiana Fever and the Chicago Sky drew 2.7 million viewers on ABC, the most watched WNBA game on ESPN platforms ever.
And also, news just came out. Ratings are higher than it's ever been for the WNBA.
Yeah.
Congrats to Caitlyn Clark. It's crazy how that works.
I mean, what are you going to do? Proof's in the pudding, kind of.
Get a girl out of Iowa.
Exactly.
Who can pull up from the state next door.
Yeah.
And light up an entire arena, every arena.
But here's where Steven's frustration really reaches a boiling point. Instead of the WNBA brass falling to their knees and thanking whatever basketball gods delivered this gift to them, we got lukewarm press releases and generic social media posts. It's like they were embarrassed by their own success, too scared to admit that one player could make such a massive difference. Stephen A. Smith saw this happening in real time and has been slowly building toward a volcanic eruption of frustration. He's watched Clark break viewership records, pack arenas, and essentially drag the WNBA into mainstream consciousness, all while certain players and pundits acted like she didn't deserve the attention.
Clark. Now I've taken hits because I was calling it from day one. You got people that are resentful towards her, but it's really not about her, guys. It's about what she represents. Before she ever came along, there were a lot of outstanding basketball players who happened to be black females that was doing their thing on the WNBA level. And they never got this kind of shine. This girl, the Golden Goose, comes along and she wreaks havoc. She's the Rookie of the Year. She's 4th in the league in MVP voting. 4th in the league, her rookie.
Now enter Brittney Griner. Here's a player who's been in the league for years, watching empty arenas and playing to crowds that couldn't fill a high school gymnasium. Then Caitlyn Clark shows up, and suddenly every game is appointment television, every arena is packed, and what does Griner do? She complains about the crowds. You literally cannot make this up. The woman who's been playing in a league that's been begging for relevance for over 2 decades suddenly has a problem when that relevance finally arrives. It's like complaining that your house is too warm after spending years freezing in the cold. And Steven is having none of it. We know what she brings to the table. But people wanted to hate because you had a bunch of players in this league that watched this young white girl come along and take the league by storm. And they resented it because they saw the marketing prowess that she had. The resentment is palpable. And Steven's been calling it out from day one. They ignored the fact that you got chartered flights because of this girl. They ignored the fact that ratings were going through the roof because of this girl. Instead, they resented it.
When it was really all said and done, we know what she brings to the table. But people wanted to hate because why? You had a bunch of players in this league that watched this young white girl come along and take the league by storm. And they resented it because they saw the marketing prowess that she had. They ignored the fact that you got chartered flights because of this girl. They ignored the fact that ratings were going through the roof because...
During a heated game between the Indiana Fever and Atlanta Dream, cameras caught Brittney Griner allegedly directing a racial slur toward Caitlyn Clark. The footage shows Griner, clearly frustrated after fouling out, appearing to call Clark trash, before adding what multiple lip readers interpreted as effing white girl. The clip went viral faster than you can say double standard, and the response from certain corners of the internet was swift and brutal. Just a reminder, this is who we traded for the Russian merchant of death. Now imagine if Clark had said the inverse. The hypocrisy is staggering when you really think about it. Here's a player who was literally saved by the US government. released from a Russian prison in a high-profile prisoner exchange. And this is how she chooses to represent herself and the league that welcomed her back. Now here's where it gets really spicy and where Stephen A. Smith's frustration transforms into righteous indignation. The WNBA's response to Griner's alleged comments? Crickets. Complete and total silence. Despite video evidence trending on social media for nearly 36 hours, the WNBA has refused to provide a comment, let alone launch an investigation. The contrast is mind-boggling. When there were dubious claims that Fever fans chanted racist remarks toward Angel Reese, the WNBA launched a full investigation that lasted nearly 2 weeks. But when it comes to clear video footage of one of their own players allegedly making racial comments, nothing. Silence. The kind of deafening quiet that speaks volumes about the league's priorities and biases.
He said Brittney Griner, who Biden traded for the merchant of death, called Caitlyn Clark the white female referee trash, effing white girls after getting fouled out. So that was Bobby Borak. He stated that on Twitter today, I believe. Watch this. So this is the call here, guys.
So the ticky-tack fouls that we were talking about earlier today.
This is where Stephen A. Smith's role as Caitlyn Clark's most vocal defender becomes absolutely crucial. While the WNBA establishment either ignored or actively resented Clark's impact, Stephen was out there fighting battles that needed fighting. "You see why I have no problem with her being Times Athlete of the Year," Smith said after Clark won the honor. "You see why I said she should have been on Team USA. You see why I had to go off on the likes of Cheryl Swoops and others who were clearly distant and dismissive of her?" Stephen continued, there was resentment toward her, and here's why I said it was stupid. Because when she came into the WNBA for 22 plus years, they had been flying commercial. They were begging for chartered flights. She arrives there, and 2 weeks later, the WNBA got chartered flights. And the man understands what apparently half the league doesn't. Things are on an upward trending trajectory. It's improving, and she's directly responsible. It's not rocket science, but somehow it might as well be for people who are more interested in protecting their egos than celebrating success.
And what I was saying to everybody is ride the wave. Rising tide lifts all boats. The girl is spectacular. It's not like she's not a scrub. She's not only can play, she's a star caliber player who draws this attention. And maybe it's because that fan base that she has and her being a young white lady contributes to it. So what? Benefit from it. And then you have a lot of folks that have come to the defense of numerous WNBA players because they were pointing out like this has been going on before long and people are not hating on her. It's not about hating on her. It's that you feel she is getting a level of attention that you deserved and you warranted long before she ever came along. It's understandable.
Stephen's been particularly vocal about the obvious double standard that's emerged. If anything, she's tried to provide assistance. She's trying to be a rising tide that lifts the boats. And there were sisters resentful against her. Clark didn't create the problems that plagued women's basketball for decades. She didn't design a system that ignored talented black women. She just happened to be born with a skill set and charisma that finally broke through to mainstream America. But instead of celebrating this breakthrough, instead of riding the wave to unprecedented success, certain players and league officials have chosen resentment over gratitude, politics over progress.
Just in the short amount of time that I watched, I remember back a while back before Caitlyn was in this, of all these female professional players bitching about not getting paid what the men do, and then it was made clear that when you have the draw, when you can bring in the money, the revenue, the advertising dollars, then you'll get paid more money. Caitlyn Clark has made that happen for the entire league, but these girls are doing everything in their power to destroy the golden goose that benefits them as a collective. And the referees, it looks like somebody has paid these high school referees to basically ignore any foul.
Let's bring this back to dollars and cents, because that's a language even the most stubborn executives understand. Clark's most recent game before her injury drew 2.22 million viewers on CBS, making it the second most watched WNBA game ever on the network. Even in defeat, even in a close loss, Clark was pulling numbers that most WNBA games could only dream of achieving. Now imagine those same time slots without Clark. Imagine trying to explain to television executives why ratings just dropped by 200%. Imagine trying to convince sponsors that the WNBA is still worth their investment when their biggest draw is sitting on the bench in street clothes. Steven doesn't have to imagine it. He's been documenting every painful ratings point drop with the precision of a mathematician and the passion of a man who's been proven right about everything he's been saying for months.
You can definitely argue that the WNBA has been taking a hit ever since Caitlyn Clark has been hurt, right? And you can also argue that the Indiana Fever have taken a hit since Caitlyn Clark has been hurt, because this is bad. Right here isn't a surprise, though. The cheapest Fever ticket before Caitlyn Clark's injury was $41. Without Caitlyn Clark, it's $3. Now, that is crazy. The Indiana Fever have been on a 3-game losing streak ever since Caitlyn got hurt.
But here's what makes Steven's defense of Clark so important. He sees the bigger picture that apparently escapes the WNBA leadership. This isn't just about individual games or even individual seasons. This is about the entire ecosystem of women's basketball. When Clark plays, people who never watched the WNBA before suddenly become invested. When she's injured or facing resentment from her own league, those same people tune out faster than you can say quad strain. And once they're gone, getting them back is going to be nearly impossible. You literally cannot make this up. When she's not playing ticket prices, merchandise sales plummet. Viewership declines when she is not suited up in uniform. The numbers do not lie, guys. Caitlyn Clark is the biggest box office attraction in the WNBA. Steven understands this in a way that apparently the WNBA leadership doesn't. He sees that Clark isn't just a player. She's a phenomenon. She's the bridge between the WNBA's past struggles and its potential future success.
In fact, ticket sales are down 70% in many places. The Fever played the Mystics 2 nights ago. The cheapest ticket before her injury was announced was $41, okay? The cheapest one. After her injury was announced and people knew that she wasn't going to be playing, the lowest ticket price dropped to $3. $3. This is the Caitlyn Clark effect. The WNBA doesn't quite realize what they have in Caitlyn Clark. She is the absolute golden goose, the golden ticket. She is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. They must protect.
The truly maddening part, and what has Steven so fired up, is that all of this was preventable. When you have a player drawing ratings that rival NBA games, when you have someone single-handedly changing the entire conversation around women's basketball, you protect that investment. You don't let opponents hack and grab and commit flagrant fouls without serious consequences. You don't let your own players direct racial slurs without investigation. You don't treat your golden goose like any other player. But the WNBA has done exactly that. And now Steven is sitting there with, "I told you so," that's going to echo for years. Because when the dust settles and the numbers come in, the WNBA is going to have to confront a reality that Stephen A. Smith has been shouting about for months. They had their savior and they took her for granted. They had lightning in a bottle and they somehow managed to let it slip through their fingers. Now they get to find out what life looks like without her.